Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems. Thanks for supporting the community. Remember why you started.
We believe in this opportunity to work in Web3, and people coming in will be a massive shift.
There's a lot of opportunities that are for naught, they're lost, and their people's skills and their what they're really capable of doing is not able to be shined through right now.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are. Welcome to Zero Authority. We are a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems built on stacks secured by Bitcoin. Today, we have a very special guest in the stacks community, in the Bitcoin community. He is one of our members of the Zero Authority DAO family. Jackbinswitch, to watch your growth. I remember when you first came into Stacks to see you just continue to sustain this upward momentum. To me, you are the Web3 blogger, and I always look forward, and I can't wait to see your new writings and what you're thinking about. What topics are you thinking about today and tomorrow? It's been so phenomenal to see the growth. I mean, you personally have contributed a ton of web traffic to Cycle Blog. So I hope if they ever launch a token, you are one of the first people rewarded for that. But with all of that said, we're going to cover a lot of things from Web3 blogging to macro to Bitcoin to ordinals to where the future of blogging on Web3. I've seen you recently talk about what Patrick Stanley has mentioned about like the ordinal news. I think there's something there, and I think that's where the future of news is. Before we dive into all of those things, James, Jack, how are you guys doing today?
Man, yeah, doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on. Yeah,
James. James, how are you,
man? I'm doing great, man. Wouldn't wish to spend my Friday evening with anybody else. So,
amen. So true.
Yeah, this is great. This is a great opportunity. You know, you guys are people that I look up to, quite a bit. I try to emphasize that on social media. I've learned a lot, talking with you all in the past, and yeah, so this is just a fantastic, treat for me to be here. So thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jack, I lost you for a second. You there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep. Hey,
okay.
Tell us about how you came to Stacks. We always love when new people come in. From day one, since you've come in, you said you've kind of had this mantra where you're going to just learn as much as you can. And then your contributions that I've seen have been awesome to say the least. And I mean, the writings that you've put forward, I think you and a couple of other people have really put Cycle on the map too. So just tell us about your journey coming to Stacks. Were you a Bitcoiner? Did you come in through NFTs? How did you hear about Stacks, and what made you just kind of grab the bull by the horns and just take it on here?
Yeah, man. I first started in just crypto in general in 2017. I've told this story before, but I wound up I did my first startup in healthcare, and it did not go well, and I actually lost everything. Like even my car got repossessed, right? And so I went and I had to go back to work. I had to realize I was beat, and so I had to hurry up and get a well-paying job. Well, in my field, travel nursing's a well-paying job. So I went and I borrowed some money from my mom to get my car out of hock. and I had to borrow money from the agency to get to the assignment that I was going to, right? So I'm staying at this ratty extended stay, working at this awful hospital, and I had property taxes coming up, and I'd heard about Bitcoin back in, I don't know, 2012, probably 2010. It was in that era. My father was sick at the time, and that kind of consumed my life. But I'd heard about it, couldn't really do anything about it. Had property taxes coming up. I'm like, man, this Bitcoin stuff, this is kind of crazy. I better go ahead and try to do something. I've got a big problem on my hands. And I wound up lucking out, buying some Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin, and quickly discovered Bittrex, made a couple trades and was able to pay for my property taxes that were coming due. And then I spent the next like year and a half getting completely wrecked in the market, but I was hooked, because right after, hit 20K, then you just start, everything just starts going down. I don't know anything about markets at this point. So I learned, and I learned how to trade, and I'm still learning how to trade. That's one of those things that you just do, right? And you just get better as you go, you hope. And so I liked Bitcoin, and I started learning. I read the white paper pretty upfront, pretty soon into my journey, because that's what everyone told you to do back then. And it made some sense. It didn't make as much sense as it does to me now. I read it again about 4 months ago, and it was just so much. There was so much more clarity there, and that's part of the crypto and Bitcoin thing, right? Is you can tell someone how it works, but there's so much to learn. There's so many facets. You have all of these different systems feeding into this underlying, economics and philosophy of Bitcoin. So, but Bitcoin was great. It's the best thing, but you couldn't do a whole lot with it. But Ethereum, on the other hand, by the time I got to be pretty decent trader, built me up a nice stack just in time for DeFi summer, and just went crazy, right? Just all of these different things. It was awesome. So much fun. You join these different communities, these projects, you get rugged here, this, that, and the other. And so in all that time, you start building a network of people, right? You're in the Telegrams, you're in the Discords, you're getting to know people. And I'd heard some people talking about stacks probably first around October 21. And I looked at the chart, and I'm like, man, this thing is toppy. I said, I am not about to buy this right now. But I just put it in the back of my mind. And come around March of 22, I'm looking at it. It looks like it's getting about right time to buy. So I start doing a little more research on it, and I'm like, holy crap, this is Ethereum on Bitcoin. I mean, that was my initial thoughts, right? Like, this is smart contracts on Bitcoin. This makes a ton of sense. And at that point, I didn't have a whole lot of NFT exposure. I'm exploring the ecosystem. I come across Rider ID, the concept for the Rider device, and I was like, wow, okay, that's the iPad. I said, well, iPod rather. I said to myself, that's the iPod of Web3. I said, this is going to be something that really brings this space to mass adoption. And from there, yeah, I went headlong. It didn't take me too long to find Siegel, and I started. I like blogging. I've been reading blogs for almost my whole adult life, and that was just kind of how it started.
Yeah, man, it's so awesome, and I think you're the only guy I know that would say in the same sentence, you had so much fun, and then you mentioned all the rugs too.
Yeah, rugs suck, man, but I chalk it up to a couple things. I chalk it up to, one, this is, you know what you're getting yourself into. This is very high risk stuff, right? I mean, some of the stuff I've actually put money on, sane people just wouldn't do that. So you have this expectation there's going to be problems, right? But yeah, you just chalk it up to experience. You learn, and you try to identify what a good project is, and that's part of it. Because when I saw stacks, I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the crypto community I've always wanted to be in. Like, there's different kinds of crypto participants. You have your builders, you have your degens, you have your devs, you have your thought leaders, you have all of these different archetypes. And among the degens, there's like the really pessimistic, cynical ones who are just like, it's all a scam. You just get in, get out, whatever. I was never like that. I've always been the optimistic one, right? I've always been like, there's something here. And maybe it's because I lived through, the .com era, right? Like everyone was just throwing whatever at a wall to see what stuck. And so I always knew there was something here, and I always knew there'd be a coin, other than Bitcoin that would actually be, or other than Ethereum. I don't want to be unfair to Ethereum. I don't think Ethereum's bad at all. I think it's phenomenal. Yeah. But I always knew there'd be something like that. So a big part of my enthusiasm is this idea of like, okay, this is the one I've been looking for. Just bar none. This is it.
By the way, we have a shout out from Mr. We Gonna Make It. Hey, y'all, Jack was giving out some free Bitcoins here.
Oh, the DM's going to be flooded with my family, sir. My family.
By the way, I think someone responded, Jack might give out some Satoshis. Hey, no pressure, Jack.
No, man, no. Like that's Web3. Like you want to reach the crowd, you gotta pay the toll.
That's right. Yeah. Hey, so I do want to give you. So before you got like super busy, you were doing something for the Zero Authority DAO, which we are so grateful for. I know you don't have any more time, but I do want to highlight just all the work that you were already putting in. And you did profiles on Kaylee, on Chibura, on Mark, and on Diego. And, this was before you got super busy, but, it's been really incredible because from day one, when HODLstacks and I, James, created Zero Authority, all we wanted to do was highlight the stories from founders on Stacks because it's a super small community. People are really passionate. People get it, right? If you like Bitcoin, but you want to do all the things that Ethereum can do, Stacks is for you, right? And now we're seeing that. The crazy thing is we're seeing this rush, and obviously the price is kind of fluctuating, but this is before SBTC and the whole S ordinals. That I truly feel this summer is going to be Bitcoin DeFi summer, and I feel going into 2024, Stacks is going to have like this renaissance of Bitcoin building. But before we go on to all of those topics, I did want to just give you a huge shout out and say your contribution to what we're trying to build with the Cerulean marketplace. It's just been phenomenal because it's all community led, right? We don't have a pile of cash sitting around to just pay people, but what we do is we have this hope that people will take control of their data, people will earn reputation on chain, people will be able to work with each other in a trustless peer-to-peer way that doesn't exist today. And when that future comes to be realized here, and I sent out a tweet to you where I said, I will be super stoked when I see you getting paid in Bitcoin to write blogs because you're one of the top producers in the Cerulean marketplace, and we can see the reputation you earn on chain. To me, that would be everything to me, man. That would come full circle for everything why we started this thing.
Yeah, man. First of all, like, I have an immense amount of respect for what you guys are building here. The concept itself is phenomenal. This idea that, the way that Bitcoin is kind of this way to get out of the fraudulent system, so to speak, this economic system that is very unfair. It's stacked against the people. When you talk about being able to create things on Bitcoin, this has to exist. You have to give people a chance to just, okay, so you're Jackbinswitch.btc or you're Zero or whoever. what do you do? What do you have? What have you done? Because we want to build something, and this is the way to do it. This is not LinkedIn. We're not worried about some HR department. We're not worried about, all of this other things. Like, we're worried about our vision and what we want to do. And that's just so important. This idea of no permissions necessary. You just get out there and your work speaks for itself. And the Bitcoin don't care who you are. That's none of that matters. What matters is, what are you here for? What do you want to do? Let's get it done. And so having something like this is just huge. It's just absolutely massive. And I look forward to contributing to what you guys are working on even more. Sometimes I saw someone not that long ago, when Satoshables first launched their inscription bot, and Satoshables, just as a few weeks ago, Satoshables like floor price went flying. Like, everyone was just, and I saw someone write an article about Satoshables. I'm like, that's what I want to see. I want to see the people who realize, hey, I might not be a dev. I might not be able to use Photoshop well enough to make good memes, but I can string some words together, and I want to get the word out. And so this is what I'm going to do. And that's how you do it, right? And if you do it consistently, you're going to get better at it. You're going to be able to make your own difference and contribute to this ecosystem. And that's what it takes. So, you get into a small project, and it's a dev and some guys, posting in the Telegram, and everyone's like, devs do something, right? Like, what's going on? Well, no, that's right. Everyone has to do something. And that's with something like this, with Zero Authority DAO, that facilitates the growth, because that's what the ecosystem ultimately needs. It needs people building. That's why people have had their minds blown recently by Stacks, because they come in here and they're like, oh my God, this place is full of people they're pushing product daily almost, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's awesome. That's a long way of saying that, like, I've truly been inspired by you all, and I've enjoyed working with you all, and definitely looking forward to do that more in the future. 100%.
Yeah. I tell you, I've told Zero this before. It was only about 120 years ago when most people ended up working for themselves or somebody they like closely knew. We lived in kind of a farming society, and then we had industrialization happen, and that was the first time a lot of people had bosses and they had kind of jobs, and they worked a corporate ladder and all of this. And so, 120 years is kind of small in the lifespan of humans. So who's to say we don't go back to working ad hoc and trying and doing creative things and kind of being able to stop and go and work in different areas how we would like to. And you get a lot more of yourself to shine through than, being shoehorned into one place. And
yeah, 100%, dude. Like, people, we have this bias where we're like, this is the way things are right now, so that's how they're always been, and that's how they're always going to be. And that's just not the case at all. And that's what we're seeing. That's what we're going to see even take place now. There's guys in the Stacks ecosystem right now who have a day job, and you look at the art they make, or you look at, their thoughts and their commentary, and you're like, this is what this person is. Like, this is their true self. They might, they might have to go do whatever to get to go their fiat mining job, but like, this is who they really are. And if we could facilitate that, that's awesome.
Oh man, I'm gonna start. I gotta steal that one. I seen you mention that on Twitter. And the way you just used it so eloquently in this conversation.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that. Hey, Jack, you have your finger on the pulse. But by the way, I don't know if you saw the really kind words from Mr. We Gonna Make It. Jack has a golden pen. Keyboard. Amazing content.
Yeah, no, Mr. Wagney is one of the best guys. Just
Hands down.
One of my. There's not like an ounce of dishonest or bad blood anywhere in that man's body. It's an absolute blessing to know that dude. He's a great guy.
Speaking of when you you've noticed more people are writing and blogging, and that's awesome. When I first arrived in Stacks, I mean, I was around since the Block Stack days, so there was it was a different kind of crowd, and then kind of mainnet launch, and then Huddle Stacks, and I don't know if a lot of people don't know, but James was running one of the first NFT sites for Stacks, and so he was getting just pinged with a ton of NFT traffic, and people wanted him to like kind of list their projects on his site. And so that's when we joined forces. But up until that point, early on in 2021, I think I was the only one, and Jake Blockchain kind of came on later. And then, now we have Mr. Wagme, we have you writing content, we have the Airdrop podcast. I mean, and there, I can't remember her name. I know Kaylee does a ton of content. It's just like just to see like this groundswell of the community coming together and saying this thing with these people I don't freaking know. I have no fucking idea who these people are, but I love these guys and girls, and I will spend my weekends or my nights working on this stuff just so others find out about this. That's like true passion. And just to see that groundswell has been nothing short of amazing.
No, that's cool, because I think that if you surveyed a lot of the people in the Stacks ecosystem, you would find a lot of people who have been in crypto for a while. And it's kind of like we go back to like the optimistic degen type archetype, right? Like, I think it's a lot of people who've been in for a while and they do have a passion for it. And then they find the Stacks ecosystem, like, okay, this is it. I think that's probably more common than we realize.
Yeah, I mean that was my experience. I was like, oh yeah, like Bitcoin rah rah rah, and then I started like understanding all the concepts with smart contracts, and I was like, hey, like, there might be some casino-ish stuff on here, but there's also some really useful things that people are building. Like, I'm still pretty bullish on like what Chainlink's trying to do. And, so I like, you run across all these communities, but man, I've never experienced anything like the Stacks community. And like, as soon as I fell into here, it was right at the beginning. I mean, when I was in Stacks, the only thing you could do was stack your stacks. It was like you would go on the Explorer, and it was just like, oh, another wallet, stack some stacks, and you just be like, oh, man, that guy's real. And that was like the only thing that was going on the blockchain.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, it's fun talking to you guys who have been around since day one, and like that was it. Like the This Is Number One dudes. I mean, they were putting out NFTs, and it was just all experimental at that point, right? And so it's cool for me being that close to the source, and then seeing where you've gone. I had a chance on Wednesday to like do a Zoom call with the Boston Blockchain Association, and it's like this private investors group, right? And they have like this guy, I believe his name is John Hargrove. He's like a crypto educator. Very, very nice, very smart man. And he kind of, within this group's people who want exposure to crypto. And so he like grades projects based on what he knows about them and tries to tell them if he thinks it's a good thing or a bad thing. And we got to talk about Stacks. And, when I was on that program, I got to talk about, I got to pick two to do. So I wanted to do like obviously I had to do Siegel, right? Because that's just my jam, right? But I also did NeoSwap, and even him, he was just so shocked because these are two things that also have real life use cases. Like when you talk to the guys at NeoSwap, they fully anticipate being able to bring that technology straight into the real world. Like they're talking about changing commerce. They're not just talking about solving a problem of low liquidity with NFTs. They want to be the eBay of Web3, basically, right? I mean, they want to just change people's perception of how things are done. And yeah, so even seeing like people who are outside of the space and how they reacted to it now versus what you're talking about, James, back when the blockchain was so young that all you would see is a wallet stack some stacks every once in a while. And then you think, how much time has really passed here? And in the scheme of things, not very much at all. So to speak to your point, Zero, imagine what this is going to look like in 2024, 2025. The pace that this ecosystem is growing out at is like at a breakneck speed. These guys, I know we're going to talk about the ordinals later, but man, when the ordinal stuff started coming up, dude, these guys were just on it. So yeah, I think it's cool, and I think this conversation we're having now, we'll have it again later, and we'll be like, my God, look at how far we've come. Look at how big this thing's gotten.
I was listening to the Ordinal show with Trevor. Man, he has grown his audience tenfold since Ordinals have dropped, and I can't remember the guy's name from Yuga Labs, the community. Do you know his name?
No, I don't know a whole lot about Yuga other than the products the apes, and I know they own the CryptoPunks now.
Yeah,
but that's about it. Yeah, but no, Trevor's a freaking gigabrain, dude. Trevor is just so
really
far ahead of the curve.
Well, so the point he was making, he said the whole Ordinal movement feels like CryptoPunks and the Yuga projects, right? The Bored Apes, before everyone knew about it, and that's how it truly feels. It feels like this community movement where it just has taken everyone by storm, and to see this renaissance right now, we're all of us are in it, and we're actually super blessed and fortunate because we are actually participating, because we can purchase these things today. I mean, just think about this, being able to purchase one of the megaponts that are on one of those early Satoshis. I think maybe from Hal Finney. There's 50 of them. I mean, you have one of those. This feels like something important. Maybe we don't realize the importance of these things right now, but it just feels like something's here. And and when you could just have that feeling, and then kind of that confirmation from the guy from Yuga, who's the community manager, saying, man, this feels different. It's just so crazy, because so many times, like, you feel like, oh man, I missed that. I missed the launch of Bitcoin. I missed the IOC of Ethereum. I missed when NFTs were taking off, or I missed the first DeFi summer. But this, people here right now, you didn't miss it. You're at the precipice of something special.
And you know what? Speaking to that point, because I've always had like that nagging bit of anxiety about what you're talking about, in terms of, I feel like I missed this, I feel like I missed that. And the fact is, this market is so young still. And I frequently tell people we're early, and I mean it, and because I know it. But like, there's always something like that, right? And when you see it, and yes, you're 100% correct. This does feel like, because, well, just look at it. Mass retail is not here. Mass retail is not thinking about crypto at all. Everyone doing the ordinals and inscriptions and coming to stacks right now, it's your degens, it's your Web3 builders, who are people who might not be crypto native, but they're like the degens cousins. They're like, I see the potential. We're going to go ahead and start building stuff out. And so it's your builders, it's your degens, it's your devs, it's your thought leaders. Mass retail, they're nowhere near crypto markets right now. And it's reflected in the market caps of Bitcoin and Ethereum, right? I mean, we're not there. So no, dude, like, I don't have nearly the ordinals that I'd like to own right now. But I remember that the first 10,000, everyone's like, oh, the first 10,000. Look, first 10,000 is always going to be worth the most. I'd be willing to bet that's a pretty safe assumption, but it's not going to be the first 10,000. You're talking about, if you're in the first 100,000, first 300,000, first million. I mean, it's so early that it's just like having so many different collections. I mean, I inscribed something the other night through Patrick Stanley's new app, right? It lets you put text right right onto Bitcoin, right? And it's such a cool app. I got to use Gamma, and I realized afterwards, like, wow, I'm the first like blogger, from Stacks on Sigil. I don't know if anyone else has done it, but who just inscribed an original work onto Bitcoin. Like, that's crazy to think. And just like if you would have asked me 3 years ago, I would have told you about all the stuff I wasn't early to, right? But no, and it's going to be like that for some time, I do think, for sure.
Yeah, it's wild watching what's going on with the ordinals, and then you have all of these projects coming in, and they're wanting to launch, and you saw Xverse and you saw Hero come in, and they swooped in and added all the features necessary to really onboard folks easily, and it's like huge props to them, because it's like this took everybody by surprise. I think this took Munib by surprise. This, like, no one saw this coming. This wasn't on the roadmap,
100%.
And that's how things work, though. And honestly, it's the things that catch you by surprise are the things that'll probably stick around, because we can all plan that there's some DeFi app that's coming and everyone's going to use it, but if something just magically finds product market fit with no marketing, no roadmap, no planning, what do you think that thing's going to do with all of that? It's going to be absurd. Like, so I'm really stoked for what Stacks is doing for this, and also just for Ordinals itself. I mean, we barely dipped our toe we're putting JPEGs on there and stuff, but I can only imagine us putting like hard data. I mean, imagine someone putting like a machine learning, like the data for a machine learning model on there. We'd all have access to it, everyone around the world. Like, there's so many things that could be done with this. It's absurd.
No, it's true, man. It's 100% true. And speaking to your point, one of the things about blockchains and crypto in general is that if you're not technical in nature, you're relying on trying to navigate something that's hard to do, and you have money at stake. And for Xverse and Hero to just make it so user friendly so fast, that right there is one of the keys that's going to lead to mass adoption. Is the teams that can make this as seamless as possible for people who have not messed with crypto. Those are the ones who are going to move the needle the furthest. And to see how quickly the Stacks ecosystem responded to this and built things that would make someone like myself, who's not technical in nature, be able to mess with these ordinals safely, that's the key. You have to be bullish on those teams at that point, because that's ultimately what's going to bring people into the space en masse. Just like we're talking about, retail's not in it. We've still, even when the most retail's ever been in this stuff, we're still nowhere near, the mass market. That's the part that people don't understand. You've got about 400 million Bitcoin wallets, and you have 6 billion email addresses, and how many Bitcoin wallets are owned by the same person? I mean, we're super early. So yeah, it's insane when you think about it.
Hey, so one thing I've wanted to ask you, Jack, you have your finger on the pulse. You're constantly pushing the boundaries on writing. With that tool, because I've seen it on Gamma and I've seen it from Patrick Stanley, and everyone knows my love for Patrick Stanley. One of the first ways that I've earned crypto was when he created his first company on Stacks was called Freehold, and really great concept. The guy's a genius.
He truly is.
He talks about things that are kind of 3 years out, to be honest, and you don't. I don't know how he sees these things coming, but he does. So that tool where you can add some text on as an ordinal and inscribe it. What do you think the future of that is?
Man, I think like we're looking at the, like James said a little bit ago, we're doing JPEGs right now, and it seems like things tend to start with JPEGs. And I think that his tool is the JPEG stage of where that's going, right? Like, for one, Bitcoin is honest. Bitcoin doesn't lie. And if you look at the world today and you're just like, oh my God, what's wrong with everything? Such a big part of that is people don't have access to truth. That's a huge problem. And you have your government gaslighting you all the time. You have the media helping the government gaslight you all the time. And no one knows what to believe. People are in this state of just kind of getting blown with the wind from one narrative to another. And that was one of the things that attracted me to Siegel in the first place, was being able to write things and not have it censored. And Bitcoin is Siegel on steroids. It is on there. It's on there, Jack. You're not doing anything about it. So imagine people like, if you take the great whistleblowers of recent time, like you think of Edward Snowden, you think of Julian Assange, you think of people like that. Now you think of those people with that kind of information that can put things on the blockchain from an address that is just a Bitcoin address. It would be very difficult to figure out who that belonged to. So you have the ability to put uncensored, unfiltered information on the internet. You have the ability to make sure that things that need to be remembered aren't swept under the rug. If a politician or some public figure does something rotten, put it on, it's on blockchain, right?
Yeah.
People just recently worried about classic works of literature being reworded because they're not like politically correct enough for the times or what have you. And that's a travesty. I mean, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't take somebody's work and alter it to suit what you think is the correct agenda. That's not your right. You could I can't even fathom much past that in terms of where this is headed. But in terms of just being able to just say, okay, this is the facts as we know them right now at this point in history, at this time for this event, that in and of itself is massive.
Yeah.
Feels like it.
I would say so. And then, 2 points with that. The first one is, we in America, we have quite a bit more freedom of speech than a lot of other places around the world. And if you're in China or you're in elsewhere, all this stuff we're talking about is ramped up by 100. And so for those people to read about Tiananmen Square and those people to read about other things where their internet doesn't give them access to, but maybe their Bitcoin node does. Right. And it's like that, that they have a lot of suppression of what their government's done wrong. And for people to kind of get that information, and that's historical information, but imagine up-to-date information. Right. So there's things like that. And then the second point to that is I could totally see something where there's a standard in place for the ordinal, and then someone creates a front end and it basically just becomes like a digital newspaper. So you could have essentially a shuffle of like the 50 top stories from people that submitted to this. And then you would have, you would probably have it so people self-categorize, and you got opinion pieces, news pieces, whatever. And so you would have kind of the plebs journal or something where you could go and read it. And for the normal person, you don't really know that you're reading anything that's straight off of a Bitcoin node, but you really are. That's where it could look like.
And that's speaking to that point too. Think about it. Writing was invented like 5,500 years ago. As far as we know, the Sumerians invented cuneiform, and they started, imprinting clay tablets, drying them, and using those record keeping to kind of build their civilization. How much do we know about the time before that? Not much. How much do we know from then to now? Honestly, not much. But our descendants, because of breakthroughs like this, will know so much more about how we lived and how the subsequent generations lived. What are the ramifications of that for humankind? That's kind of mind-blowing if you think about it.
Yeah.
And something that you just said made me connect the dots, right? if you think about writing on ancient texts, whether it's the Egyptians and papyrus, or whether it's Sumerians, only a small amount of people had access to even write, and even were knowledgeable of that could understand writing, right? And kind of the same concept today with Bitcoin, right? The market penetration is less than 1%. The total crypto market is about 1 trillion. The total, I saw a statistic the other day, the total NFT market is about 10 billion, right? So you're talking about 1% of 1% that's doing, and it would even probably be ordinal inscriptions are 1% of the 1% of that 1%, because
Yep.
not
Right.
even that many people. So you're talking about some of the first type of knowledge sharing on the Bitcoin blockchain that to me, it's kind of like that same similarity where you'd have to know how these things work to feel comfortable to even do it. And those are the things that's going to survive as kind of this archive of human knowledge, which is crazy to think, right? Because 200 years from now, when we have interstellar travel and we're going to different planets, and then whatever form of that Bitcoin takes on, they're going to be able to see these early inscriptions on a blockchain that we see today in a sarcophagus of like a Egyptian tomb, the hieroglyphs.
Right.
That's wild to me. I'm
No,
just that right now.
I say it all the time, and I try to keep all my social media posting as positive as I can. Sometimes I can't help myself, and I just get angry because I'm just so tired of the deception and the lies. But I truly believe we're on the cusp of a golden age. I think we're really, and I 100% believe that the work we do right now, even this, the in the scheme of things, as insignificant as it actually is, the cumulative work that we're doing right now is going to lead to that. I think that's going to be a big part of it. And you're right, man. Like the printing press was released in like the 1600s, right? And prior to that, everyone was a medieval peasant. No one knew how to read. You had to be, basically born very well off to even be literate at all. And things, all the books up until that point were written by hand, so they were extraordinarily expensive. Man, the printing press comes out, literacy explodes, and changes the world in such a dramatic fashion, and literally changed the whole power structure of governments on the planet. At that time, the church was the most influential institution in the Western world. So you look at what's going on today, and we have no idea what the actual ramifications of that's going to be. But it seems like since Bitcoin is incorruptible, I would have to say that, yeah, I would bet on a golden age for sure. And then you take this AI technology that can be that can speed human development as well. It's insane. I think the next 20 years of our lives are just going to just be massive, just full of massive change. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I want to get, before we run out of time, I do want to ask you a couple of things about your latest writing. So you did some coverage on NeoSwap. You've done some coverage on the Stack Degens. Where you're new to Stacks in a sense that you've been around for a year, and obviously you're super engaged with the community, Jack. We all love you. You're doing amazing work. Where are some teams that immediately, just in your mind, kind of stand out? I mean, it may not be specific to like NeoSwap, what they're doing, or Gamma. It may just be like some themes that you're seeing emerge from the Stacks ecosystem.
Yeah, well, I think one of the cool things about getting to talk to people about what they're building is it gives you perspective that you wouldn't have otherwise. And for instance, before I talked to the Stacks Degens, I knew that they were actually working on decentralized mining pools, and that in and of itself is huge. But when I got to talking to them about the Stacks Degens project itself, and you realize these guys took a bunch of smart contracts, and now there are templates for people who want to build GameFi that can just immediately, they don't have to figure that part out. That's how things are built. They're literally helping to build the foundation for gaming, which gaming's not going anywhere. I mean, gaming is going to bring eyes to the blockchain. And if you're a game developer, why would you even want to mess around with Web 2 solutions? Why bring a middleman into this at all? Why not just have the game and the community and go ahead? Aside from things like that, it's so hard to be like most impressed with any of it, because everyone is doing just amazing things. The first time I talked to John Ennis was, I think, June of 22, and NeoSwap was still pretty much in its infancy. And I talked to him the other day, and I mean, they're about to have an AI, trading assistant for people. I mean, my goodness, that's like leaps and bounds, from just where it was. And so it's tough to really nail down who to be most impressed with, because everyone you talk to gives you something to be impressed about,
Yeah, it's so true. It's, I talk about John a lot. I think he's like the Jeff Bezos of like, when you're around him, he reminds me of you read about Jeff Bezos in like the .com era, and he's like, just so mission focused, and also it's like nothing phases him. He's like, yep. It's a bygone conclusion that they're going to be successful. It's just a matter of time.
And the crazy thing about Stacks, so we talked about Trevor, and you're like, okay, this is a forward, thinking, just visionary, smart dude. And then you have Patrick Stanley, that's a forward thinking, visionary, smart dude. And you talk about John Ennis, you can say the same things. And then look at Gamma, look at Alex. I mean, it's everywhere you turn, you have all of these different projects just making amazing strides. And somehow, by the culture or by providence, I don't know what, but there's so many good people here working on good things, to be constructive. It's just, I can't give an answer to why that is. All I can do is be extraordinarily thankful for it,
Yeah. Speaking of that, I'll put the question in another way. You have any alpha for us? You have any you're talking to all these folks. That's
yeah, I think well, for instance, the Stacks Degens, their mint is I think their pre-mint's going on right now. I think the public mint's live on the 12th. And I think on the 13th they're hosting a actual race, like a tournament. There's 3,333 STX up for grabs. I think that, I mean, that's a nice prize to go for.
Yeah, it is.
There's and in their new iteration of the game, there's going to be loot boxes that you can use to upgrade your vehicle and so forth. So you're bringing in this thing where it's got, you now have upgrades to your vehicle. Potentially you can sell them. This is number one, Launch Narcotics, and they're going for this huge interactive experience. And those guys are so tight-lipped, but they're like head down to working, pushing the next iteration of this update for this whole virtual world that combines art and entertainment. And the guest, I was in the Discord earlier playing in their casino, right? Because they had the foresight to make pogs, and you can go play these mini games and try to win, extra pogs. And yeah, man, I don't know. It's too much. I don't have enough to keep up anymore. You know, I literally it's moving at a speed too fast for me to even keep up. There's people that I still want to talk to and write about, and you don't have enough time in a day. It's just so much so fast.
Yeah, and we love Stack Degens, and I know I just got their new NFT the other day. But yeah, so their launch is they're pushing the boundary on what you can do with Clarity contracts for sure.
Yeah, 100%. And who knows where it's ultimately gonna end up? But I think gaming's going to be a big narrative, and I think DAOs are going to be a huge narrative. You know, if the point in crypto is being early to something to give yourself the biggest advantage, understanding, trying to pick out the narratives before they happen is not foolproof. But I think DAOs are going to be huge because these are entities that allow people to cooperate towards a common goal, right? And you can then use these things to, you know, you could have investment DAOs, you could have creative DAOs. We're going to be talking literally the best writer in our ecosystem is Trig.btc. The man is just absolute literary genius. And you know, Gary Reiger from Haylayer floated this idea of having a Bitcoin magazine type magazine, which you all know me well enough to know that's been something I've been wanting to see for a while. And so, you know, there's going to be a call about that. Imagine if you wanted to make a magazine or anything like that, you make a DAO, right? You have a creator DAO, and everyone, and you have the governance set however you want. You have all your talent there. This is your product. You make it. So I think gaming's going to be a big narrative. I think DAOs are going to be a big narrative, and these NFTs that are do more than just being PFPs. You know, these experiences and entertainment and so forth. We're just on the cusp of all of these things. I mean, it's just extraordinarily early. You know, people take it for granted, but no, I mean, look at that. I've been seeing that chart float around.
Yeah.
That's insane, you know.
Man, you know, when this all started on mainnet, and that was like January 2021. I mean, this list could fit in the upper left.
Yeah.
You know, there wasn't much to it, and you know, we saw our names down there, Zero Authority, and that means everything to us, because you're just working and you're constantly trying to battle to get something created. And people see that, and so for all of these little logos, there's been so much work done. I mean, I'm looking at the Hero logo, right? I mean, this wasn't Hero when we started 2 years ago. It was the Stacks Foundation, and Munib was running it, and he went on to do something else, and he's at Trust Machines, and then Hero created their own company, and everyone started creating their own company. We've talked to Ken. It was about 12 months ago. He was a Blockstack developer. He was early with Blockstack, and he went on to create Xverse. Patrick Stanley created City Coins, and Larry and Zan, they created other things too. So just like looking at this list, Jack, when you say DAOs are going to be the next wave of, and I don't know if it's going to be, I definitely don't think it's going to be the summer, but at some point, people are going to realize DAOs are the new working model. Like,
right.
if I can, and I saw some of this conversation happen during the bull run last time, but I do believe maybe this next run, it will be a new pivot point where people realize, you know what, I can really make a living with DAOs, and I don't have to work at a company anymore.
No, I absolutely see that coming. You know, 100%. So next bull run comes, you know, DeFi stuff is going to pop off because degens are going to degen, right? You know, NFTs are going to pop off because degens are going to degen. You know that the ordinal stuff is going to be its own thing, and so you're going to have all of these people who have all of extra liquidity to invest in things, and then you have a matter of the working products, and that's really what it is. We've heard the term DAO since 2016. We've heard the word NFT since, like, I don't know, 2017, 2018, something like that. And we have these pictures in our minds and these conceptions of them, but the reality that's coming is these first iterations are going to be constantly improved on. And of all of those things, one of the things that's going to move the needle the most is going to be the DAO. I have no doubt about it. I mean, it's going to be, like you said, people are going to be able to make the livings they want to make in the way they want to do it, and they're going to do it with other like-minded people, and they're going to combine their skills and talents, and that's going to be all she wrote, you know.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting model too for things getting built on stacks in a unique way for DAOs. Say, like, we just saw all these events occur with this bank that is very cozy with a lot of crypto folks, right? And
Right.
say us crypto folks wanted to come together and say, hey, why don't we form our own bank? Why do we have to trust these folks? Why can't we all come together, form our own bank? And then at that point, we have a place that we know is not going to do stupid stuff with our money. And then they're not going to cancel us because the government wags their finger at us. And it's like,
right.
you could have a POX light token and have mining for a certain period of time until you have your funding reached. And then that's your DAO. There's your funding for your DAO. There's the mechanism for how it's funded. There's how you get your members. And then from there, you have the bringing it to life aspect.
Well, yeah. And think about being able to, like, invest in biotech as a DAO, right?
Mhm.
Like, all of these different new technologies, invest in the AI as a DAO. There's so many opportunities, and yeah, you're right. It's going to we don't need banks. We didn't need banks, not the way that we conceive of them. We need each other. And we don't need people profiting off of our labor. We need a fair system, and DAOs are going to play a big part of that.
I think so. Hey, you have kids, Jack.
Yeah, too many.
Never too many, man. We need more Jack Juniors in the world.
Yeah, more Jack Juniors in the world. So my kid is too young, but your kid's a little bit older, and I have nieces. James and I have nieces and nephews, and I've noticed a trend. They're more accepting of virtual currency because they play Roblox, they play Minecraft, so they get that. I mean, when I was a kid, it was a big deal. You kind of go down to your local bank, you open up your first account, and you're like, okay, well, I'm growing up. I got my bank account now. I just don't see kids doing that anymore.
No, like, okay, so my two oldest sons, my oldest one, he's 20. He's got his career sorted out. He's getting ready to propose to his girlfriend, all these different things.
Oh, congrats, man. Huge deal.
He doesn't have a savings account. He's got a checking account to pay his little bills, and he's got Bitcoin and stacks. My second son, he's 18 years old. He's got a checking account and he's got Bitcoin and stacks. Like, that part of it's changing as well, right? And then when you start talking into, what's going to happen with kids and being more accepting, and then when you start thinking about the crypto type Web3 products that are going to be made for kids, I think all of that's gonna grow. That's a huge unexplored part right now. But that, smart people have got to be thinking about that. Imagine having, NFT communities that create content for children, entertainment, things like that. What you have right now with AI art and the filmmaking is becoming more available than it ever has been because of AI. Yeah, it's going to be nuts, but yeah, the mass adoption's happening. Like I said, I mean, it's straight up.
Yeah. Oh, to kind of pivot, to pivot back to you a little bit, Jack. I did see, you mentioned recently something about whether your followers would like you to have a partnership or whether they were okay with that. I'd like to hear about that. I mean, as a follower of yours, I'd love to see it. So
Yeah, I'm actually going to launch a podcast. And there's some expense. There's some expense involved there. So if I have to spend money, I'm one of these guys for the past few years that I'll wear shoes until I can't wear them anymore because I'm gonna buy more crypto. But if I'm gonna watch the podcast, you know, I need to cover some of those expenses. And so, yeah, I want to do that. The podcast will help feed the blog. The blog will help feed the podcast. The information will be out there, and I want to create a community around it. I want people to have a place where they can talk and have a voice and talk about the things they want to talk. So when I do it, I want to have a console community because I want it to be safe for everybody. I think those guys are making an amazing product. And yeah, so that's kind of one of my very short-term goals here. And you know, trying to figure out how to launch it where I don't have to come out of pocket and I can still make the content, and that's pretty much where that was born from.
That makes sense, man.
yeah. Hey, anything that you need help from us or Zero Authority DAO, we're just one message away, man. Always willing to help out.
Yeah, look, when I launch this thing, y'all gonna have to promise to come on the show, you know, for sure.
We'd love that, man. We would absolutely look forward to that for sure.
Yeah, that's the big thing. I want to be able to talk to the community and talk to the builders and have some commentary about what's going on in the space and what's going on in the world, and just try to make something cool, you know. Not everyone likes to read. I try to write in such a way that it's you know, grabs people attention and doesn't keep them too long and can inform them. And but the video content's definitely important as well. And I definitely want to get that out there.
Hey, but we have a couple of seconds here left, but one thing I wanted to tell you, because I was tuning in, I don't know if it was Purple Pill Friday or what I know it was a Twitter space, I can't remember, but someone said that you should also do a recording of you reading some of your blogs. And I thought that was a really good idea. I can't tell you like how many times like I'll go to YouTube to read or to listen to a book summary, or someone is just kind of reading their ideas that they write. It happens so much, and I think that's an untapped opportunity. So I would even say, if you had to split your time or decide what's more important, this podcast or just reading the work that you produce, I would say reading the work that you produce is more important than talking to other folks, man.
Huh, that's a good thought. And that kind of feedback is always useful, because I get so hyper focused on one thing. I do so at the exclusion of others. So yeah, that's something I never even thought about before. So that's a pretty cool idea.
So let me put this out there, because and before he kind of shut down his crypto stuff, Pomp was doing a lot of this, where his newsletter was kind of just taking off. He would record himself reading his daily podcast, and I know I personally would always listen to that rather than some of the things he wrote. If I really had to digest it and think about it, I would do both. I would listen to him talk through it, but I would also I would also read some of the points that I really needed to understand. And that is a great way to engage, man. And you have a butter voice, man. It's
cool.
awesome.
I appreciate it. It's weird because when I hear myself talk, I just hate it. But I think that's a pretty common human experience.
Hey, that's everybody, man. I don't watch any of these videos because I'm like, who's this freaking this guy over here? James just can't speak correctly. Like,
yeah.
bad.
Well, no. No, that's a good idea, man. I appreciate the suggestion. I'm gonna think about that. I think that'd probably be a good use of time, because often even me, I drive. I tweet a lot during the day because I tweet way more than I should while I'm driving, but I'm out in these rural areas and it's pretty easy. But yeah, like I listen to audiobooks. I at this point in my life, I listen to more audiobooks and books that I read, and I love to read. And it's just because of time constraints and so forth. So that you see, I never even thought of that. That's a really good idea.
Yeah, because I love audiobooks too, and I used to love how Pomp did that on Anthony Pompliano, where he would do his I forget the blog or the newsletter service.
I followed him on Twitter forever, but I never subscribed to his newsletter.
Yeah, I forget what's the name of that platform. It's super popular.
Yeah, I know.
Substack.
Yeah.
And then he'd have a link to the audio recording. Dude, I think you should do that, man. I know the podcast is something you're thinking about, but I just feel like you would engage more of the community by actually giving.
Oh, did Zero just get rugged?
I think he did.
Man, I've been waiting for this day. He got rugged. He's.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we
can hear you now.
Okay. No, I was saying give your audience, give the community another way to actually digest the information you're putting out. That's more important to me than talking to and I think that having those conversations is still important. I'm not saying it's not, but just giving another outlet.
Yeah.
No, that's a cool idea, like some old time Paul Harvey type stuff, for a new age.
Yeah.
That's dope.
It would be cool too, because like for one, you'd probably be putting it up on like YouTube and other places, and so people that don't even really know about Stacks will be exposed to your writing, and that'd be great because I mean, what better person to onboard somebody to Stacks than you?
I appreciate that. I'm just so happy that anyone ever liked anything I ever wrote, because I just had no expectations going into this at all, other than I just wanted to do it.
And man, you've done it, and you're doing it, and it's just been phenomenal to watch, Jack. Just we're just so appreciative of your time today. And if you want to learn more about Jack, he's on Twitter, Jackbinswitch.btc, and the work that you're putting out is just nonstop, and we love to see it, Jack.
Thanks, man. That means a lot to me, and I'm gonna keep doing this. And thank you guys. It's always fun to talk to y'all. I always walk away with a new perspective, and it happened again today. So I mean, every time we talk, I grow. So it's awesome. So thanks.
We feel the same way, man. Well, you guys have a great weekend, and really appreciate the time today, brother. You guys have a good one.
All right, man. Take it easy. See you
Take
later,
care, man. We'll have to stay in touch, Jack.
100%.
See ya.
Zero Authority is a community of people who believe in open source and permissionless systems. Thanks for supporting the community. Remember why you